Hello and welcome. Today we're going to try to get through quite a bit more of these plague marines. There's actually three of them. That guy's just got some red glop drying on his back. Essentially what I'm going to do today is these two guys here are going to get a bunch more details on them. They're pretty much all washed, but they got tongues and cloth and crazy eyes and little bits of more detail to put in. And some of the nicks and stuff. There's a shrunken head on there. That's going to need some glop of some sort. So these guys, and obviously the metallics, need to get a bit rusty. So we'll work through both of these dudes. And then the third guy, he is going to get some streaking grime all over. He's got a little bit of drying to do before that, but I very quickly, before getting started, while I was making my tea, just glopped him up with a bunch of red on his cloak. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Good afternoon as well, Pira. Things are good. Things are good. It was a good week of work. I got a good night's sleep. I can't complain. I got a little bit of time to paint, so not too shabby. Hopefully, you've been well as well. But yeah, good to see you. Let me just boop, hit a little to-do. There's the thing I'm looking for. Bam! We did it. It was proper emoji. So with no further ado, I guess I'll get started. So what probably makes sense is for me to get some typhus corrosion on the lead belchered metal bits first, so that'll have a little bit of time to dry before I give it a dry brush with some Rise of Rust. So yeah, typhus corrosion. One of my favorites. I know it's not that exciting to some people, but I do love the stuff. It is a good time. You know what? I'm actually just going to... I'm not going to use a Q-tip. I'll use an actual brush. I'll use one of my green brushes that I beat the daylights out of. It's good to color code your brushes for combat duty. Oh yeah, it's a heavy amount. That's all good though. Scoot you a little bit back, give me some room to breathe. This guy has a good amount of chain on him. I could just wash the chain, but this guy doesn't have too much stuff that's going to pop with color. He's pretty subtle for a plague marine. He'll get a little bit of red on the teeth eventually. He'll get a little bit of red on this piece of cloth, and the tongue will get some Bugman's glow. But for the most part, he doesn't have heaping piles of stuff to add color to. Like there's no tentacles up here. His helmet is thoroughly closed. He'll get a little bit of blood for the blood god in there so that the little circle in the middle has a nice red to it. But if he's not going to get too much color, which there's not much space for it, I'm going to go pretty hefty on the rust. And then the Ryza will give a nice shine to it. I'm doing this first before I hit him with any more Warp Lock bronze so that the bronze won't get all rusty too. That'll just be nice and dark. I'm not going all that even with this stuff on purpose. I know probably on camera it looks pretty much like all brown, but there's definitely places where it pulls up a little bit more or a little bit less. I'm sort of splotching, not quite stippling. I do love that word. So what I like to do is just drop some dots in and then spread them around a little bit. If it gets heavy in spots, once it's dried, I'll just take a toothpick at like a 45-degree angle and just kind of push it till a little bit of stuff scrapes up. Like you don't want to go nuts on it. But you can break up some of the bigger clumps that way. We're just going to get all around this dude. My glasses keep sliding off the end of my nose. I'm not sure I'm ever going to fix it though. So as you can see there, now it's starting to look pretty dirty. A couple more little glops here and there. Make sure I'm getting the back nice and good. And that stuff does not take long to dry. So I don't have to leave it there too long, but obviously getting it down as quickly as possible is important because it's it dries with a peculiar texture. And I want to make sure it's nice and dry because all that texture, it's like kind of like asymmetrical, very fine sandpaper. There's a little bit of grit to it. And when you dry brush over it, because it's not uniform, the rise of rust sticks to the places that are a little bit grittier, and you get this nice sort of asymmetric rustiness to it. I'm going pretty ham on this axe blade. Such a weird axe. Such a weird axe. Art Deco axe. So on camera, like, that bronze is pretty darn close to that rusted metal. But as the Ryza gets on there, it'll look better. I also did what remains of this guy's helmet in a bit of lead belcher. So I'll just dab around here pretty gently. You can see that this brush is pretty frayed on the end, which is actually good for this step. You're just kind of splotchy stippling the stuff in. And I'll probably give his helm on top a little bit of rust. But that's in there good. So we can move forward. I still have to give the guy in the back a little bit of time to dry. So for my next trick, I will switch out this janky brush, grab something a little bit more suitable with paint, and we'll use Bugman's Glow on anything fleshy, like tongues. If there's any tentacles, I think this guy's axe has a little bit of tentacle going around it. Yeah, he does. I'll switch over to him. So I'll hit this tentacle with some of this, and that'll just serve as a fleshy sort of base. You can see right away it's just a little bit pink, but not too pink. Just get in there, and I'm hitting it with this first because the shaft of the model is going to get wood. So that's a darker color, and it'll cover over any mishaps that happen. Not that I ever make mistakes, of course. I'm trying to be a little bit more deliberate now. It's like if something is going to, if we're going to paint two things next to each other, do the light thing first, then the dark thing over it. Or at least next to it so that the overlaps are not too bad. That doesn't mean I don't end up going back and forth multiple times, healing different mistakes on different sides, but if I do get lucky and sort of get something right the first time, I'm in pretty good shape. You'll also note that I'm not thinning the Bugman's Glow at all. I tend to not thin the paint when I'm doing something very nurgly, very fleshy. Some of that imperfection you get with a little bit of brush strokes, with a little bit of clumpiness here and there, it's actually not all that bad. It looks pretty gnarly when you do it on like a piece of armor. It's a perfect example. I'm gonna have to figure out something to do with that back. That thing is just all green. Oh, it's gonna get some brown. I'll get some bronze on it in a little bit. It's got a little bit of metal in there. Yeah, that'll work out. But anyway, tentacle, tongue. That tongue is going to get something much more red when I get to the teeth. The tongue may actually get blood for the blood god because that paint is dope. And then the tentacle will get a wash on it. Something either red or purple. All right, this guy, what do you have? He's got his crazy tongue sticking out of his face. So we'll get that. Start getting this guy a little bit of color to work with. And these guys were fun. I just mixed and matched parts from the box. Did a little posing. I did end up using a tiny little bit of green stuff in a couple spots, but at this point it's all invisible. Just to get certain parts to fit together better. A lot of these models, here's a very good example. This model that's got like two-handed weapon, his hands are part of the weapon model. And then you attach the arms, and then the arms have to attach to the shoulders, and then you still have to have place for the pauldrons to fit on. So that can be a little bit off. I've got some spare arms just lying around where I tried to dry fit it, and it just didn't work. So sometimes it's better to, like, especially because the shoulders are going to be hidden a lot with the pauldrons, find a set of arms that are a little too big, but green stuff in there so that you can snug them in. Because doing the opposite's not very helpful. Getting the arms and the weapon together and then trying to force them open to fit around the shoulders. I tried that. It's not a good road. Not a good road. All right. I think after I finish these guys, which today may be the last day that they get camera work, but I figure they're probably good for one more stream. When I finish these guys, I'm just going to bite the bullet and hit Mortarion. I do have an orc showing up for Orctober. But Orctober's a long month, and if Mortarion's literally taking me forever, or I get jammed up with time or I can't stream, I'll just take a break, hit that orc. It's some dude with a microphone. It's really dope looking. All right, now I'm going to get red for the cloth. And I'm sure I'll find more tentacles as I go that I missed, but that's fine. Give this guy a decent wash. Need to be kinder to my brushes, I think. This guy's already pretty beat up. Oh, how about a brush? Yeah, there we go. These I'll do in Fistin Red to start, and then they'll get some sort of wash. I may actually go with a slightly dark contrast paint. This stuff, especially because I'm going on cloth. This stuff gets thinned out. Fistin Red is thick, thick, thick stuff. It's like thicker than nail polish. And crazy, crazy Ron McDonald Red. You just gotta respect it. Alright, clean my brush off a little bit and get a dab. Here I want to go nice and slow next to all the other work that I did. Not get obsessive about it, but just take it slow. Always a little spooky when you're working with this color red on a Death Guard. Just take your time. Don't have to do long strokes. There we go. It does not need to be like perfect coverage, because this is going to get a pretty hefty amount of wash after the fact. I mean, obviously you want to get as complete coverage as you can. It's just you also want to be mindful of the risk you are taking every brush stroke, and the fact that it's a lot of the places that are a little tougher to hit and get even coverage are where the wash or contrast paint is going to level the most. So don't be afraid to let it do the work a little bit at least. Like, I'm going to get in here, but I'm not going to spend a ton of time in here. Just very gently touching the edges of some spots. Get a little bit more in here. Sort of a second coat right there. And Death Guard Green is a very interesting primer coat because it ain't dark and it ain't light. It's somewhere in between, and a lot of colors react very strangely, not in a bad way to it, but if you're used to priming with black or white, it is the fact that it's got color in it reacts very differently. I'm not going to say that it gives you natural highlights because that's a lie. But the spots where the paint is a little thinner, they're not just lighter or darker. They've got some green in the back. And that matters. Like in the same way I've seen people paint orc flesh and it's like they use a black primer and then the first three colors they use on it have nothing to do with green whatsoever. And it's like, wow, that's brilliant. It's like yellow, red, and like pink. And then they go over it with green and it all comes together. You get a little bit out of Death Guard green in that way. That's going to take more than a thumb to fix. Like, you can see that this Q-tip's red from when I was handling that cloak earlier. And as long as you don't freak out, you're probably good to go. Just remain calm, fix your little spill, keep it moving. I used to bug out physically when I would screw up when I got started and screw up even more. Like the shaky brush syndrome where you're just like, you just have to, you just gotta stay in control. If you screw up, you can fix it. It's okay. Some of my screw ups are my crowning achievements. They teach me stuff. All right, so that guy's reasonably covered in red. I'm being mindful of the fact that the wash he gets over this, he's going to carry a lot of the workload. So starting to get a little bit of color to him. That red sash is obviously like pretty big, and that's going to help a lot. The tongue will get an additional wash. His eyes are going to get pretty darn. Almost dumped you in the fist in red. I will have to go over that spot that I hit with Bugman's, but his eyes will get something glowy, probably Tesseract glow. So I'm starting to feel better about him, not looking quite so monotonous. His backside is probably going to need a little help, but I'll figure that out a little later. I've found that Nurgles rot, even over stuff like Death Guard green, can tend to just make it pop a little bit more without being something like a yellow or a red, or God forbid a blue. All right, just getting in there enough. Keeping my paint relatively thin. Don't want it runny, but it definitely doesn't want to be thick right now. Decent amount of control over it. I may need a shorter brush. I might not. I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. There we go. Just getting around these edges and in these little holes. And it's rust nearby, at least underneath. So you don't have to overly fret if a little goes overboard, because you're going to be hitting that with more red as more rust. You do need to freak out a little bit if you hit the white stuff. That is a proper reason to freak out. There is that. I'm going to, while I'm in here, in the red zone, so I can breathe a sigh of relief in a minute, I am going to dab some blood for the blood god in this guy's little eye hole that you can see there. There you go. And I will take a smaller brush for that. There's not going to be any messing around. Oh yeah, this thing's got like a frayed curved tip on it. I will grab. Yeah, you're good. And with this, I just need to put a little droplet in that eye, and I can have some faith that it'll make its way down. And if it doesn't, then I'll just take a dry brush and just sort of, I'm just going to shut up for a second. Get a little more on there. get a bunch of this off of here. So you can see I hit that center with red. I'm going to see if I can get it to pull down. I doubt it. I doubt it. It may just be up there, but it would be really nice if it made it all the way down this line. It does not take a lot. It may not even show. You know what? I got it in there. Now all I got to do is clean it. Yep, it's in that crease now, which, God, no one's ever going to see because it's not a showpiece. But I know it's there. I got it all the way down that seam, which is pretty cool. I dig it. So yeah, he's got a little bit of color on his face. That wasn't as bad as I may have hyped it up for myself to be. What's up, Dane? Good to see you. It's still not early morning for you at this point. The early show for you. I'm going to switch to brown. I'm not even sure if I grab the smart brown. I grab a smarter brown. That's Gilliman. I've grabbed Mournfang brown. Yeah, more Plague Marines. This may be finishing up. Maybe not. I may have one more episode of this, but I've decided I am going to tackle Mortarion next. I don't know if you heard that from earlier, but I'm just going to take my time with it, sub-assemble it. Nice. I'm rearming. I like the sound of that. Good stuff. All right, so next I will hit anything brown, so that'll be like handles of weapons, long stavish parts of weapons. And just keep it moving. Alrighty. So, Mournfang brown, which is a little lighter than some of the browns I've used on some of the weapons, but I like to mix it up. It's relatively light brown. It's not tan. But I do like it because you can get sort of a subtle transition if you dry brush after it. With something like I've used Xandri Dust to dry brush after. You can get some decent highlights off of it. I'll just get some of this on the palette. I don't need a ton because I'm not covering a lot of real estate. A little dab of water. Yeah, spread that out a little bit, get it nice and smooth. And then just carefully, don't cover up the fingers. Just get in there, take your time. This little spot right between the fingers is a little bit of a pain, but it's okay. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I feel like I'm in a mode where I'm ready for him. I've done enough research. I've got more paints showing up in the mail. I think I'm gonna face him head on. Which, I mean, obviously I could back out of it any time and choose to do other stuff, but I feel like doing these 3 Plague Marines, which is not a large number. It's like, okay, I feel like I felt pretty good about getting back to Plague Marines. But I mean, I don't care if it takes me 30 episodes to get through Mortarion. I kind of like the idea of it being a big project. But I picked up that orc as sort of a safety break in case of glass. I'm entirely fine with starting Mortarion, taking a little time off from him, going back and hitting him a little bit later. That all works. But he is a big pile of gray plastic burning a hole on my shelf. I feel like I'm ready to address him. That and I don't always make the brightest choices, but I gotta hit him someday. So soon, TM, soon. I think that's almost not. He's got the handle of his plague knife. That can definitely go brown. Gently. I like the whole thing with brown, why not? And then the sort of scabbardy thing, I can hit that. And the scabbard and the handle will get different washes on them to sort of get them differentiated. I just nicked a spot there. Or I just hit it with something else last time. Or the paint dried differently than I remember it. Sometimes you just don't know. Yeah, I'll just get this whole thing. I hit some of it with lead belcher the other night. And now I'm like, yeah, that probably wasn't what that was. This whole strap, I'll hit that buckle a little bit later. An unbuilt Razorback, 5 intercessors. Way more projects in the pipeline. Yeah, it's something to definitely be wary of and be realistic about. I have the benefit of newness on my side. And honestly, like if I get a little crispy, I'm sure that's also a good lesson too. Some lessons you just gotta do. But I'm definitely paying attention to what you're saying. And if I do get a little crispy, I'll be the first one to admit it. All right, that guy's good and browned up. Any other spot I want to hit? Now the wash hit this horn pretty well. See, it's like right in that crease nicely. It's darker on the bottom here than it is way up on top. I've got a little bit of cleanup still to do on this guy. A couple spots that I don't think I realized were sprue bits at the time. Thought they were just like nodules or nicks. So you can't always tell with these guys. Subtle imperfections might just be a place you could have done a cleaner job cutting them off the sprue. Or it could be a pockmark. Your choice. I think that's the only part of this I'm actually going to do in brown. Probably for the best. I could hit that shaft. I'm going to go over this a little bit here. In retrospect, slightly different than what I was doing before, but I think he needs a little more brown on him. On further review, I'll leave the back of it bronzed. All right. Progress continues. After Christmas, I'm tackling Black Templars and putting everything else on slow grow until I get around to them. It sounds like a plan. I think the other thing with Mortarion is that like that gets me super close to being A, done with that army as like 2,000 points, but B, if I want to play 1,000 point games, I can just like pick either I'm not even sure if I can take the Tyrant into a 1,000-point game, but it gives me a little bit more flexibility if I want to play smaller games, which is probably for the best. Is there any more? This guy doesn't have any sheath anywhere. I'm going to hit some of the growth on his back with some brown. Just when I washed this the last time, everything won't be silver or green. It'll help break things up a little bit. I mean, it's almost certainly going to get like 1 to 2 layers of Agrax. My dear lovely Agrax Earthshade. But if a few of these tube-ish things are brown, and that Agrax sort of works in that spectrum, it won't be as monocolor. All right. All right. That's not bad. Got a little bit of brown going, which is good. Take this time to make his eyes nice and shiny. Dark shiny, but bright shiny. Give this guy another little dip in the pool. There we go. And I will grab a paint that's not sitting here. I was going to grab Tesseract Glow, but I'm not. I'm not. This guy's going to get yellow eyes. I don't want to do everybody the same. Their armor is a pretty standard scheme that I'm using now. It's at least standard for me. Might as well deviate a little bit in a few spots. Got another bug guy with crazy green eyes. Tesseract green eyes. This guy's going to get yellow. And I'm going to hit him with Avalon Sunset first. And then Bad Moon Yellow? It might be too dark. Yeah, we'll see. That at least brings up the primer a bit. Just get it in. Yeah, get it in there. Oh, this is going to be spicy. What I got myself into. That's a little bit hard to reach. Not impossible. Just requires some care. Not too much arm shake would be helpful. Yeah, now I can see it. There's the perfect angle to get in there. I had to paint his eye enough to see where I had fallen short on the other side without getting a shadow on it. Big bulging yellow eyes. Yeah, that's going to help him out. Obviously, that's super flat. It'll need contrast and a wash. But yeah, what I think I'm going to do is get Mortarion started. He's absolutely in big parts, big different parts. So like there's all the armor, which I think I might actually do his armor, none of it green. I may do it all in this light style, which would really harken back to like his like original, almost pre-Emperor armor. There's like a couple drawings of it, and it's all light colored. So I might try that, but then he's got all this cloth, crazy amount of cloth. All this ethereal wispy stuff going on because he doesn't like psychers, so why is he covered with warp energy? He's got the wings, and the wings are like several steps. Those I'm going to have to do really slow. They'll actually, some of these parts will be primed different, so I think what I'm going to do is like up on this shelf, I'm just going to have separate Mortarion projects going for a bit. Because it's going to be a lot of layers of different washes and stuff like that. After I do a bunch of painting, and there's going to be a ton of dry brushing on different bits, and I do want to take my time with it. All right, I am just going to hit these eyes now with what is it, Bad Moon Yellow. And yes, I know this paint isn't particularly dry, but it's not going to matter because all I'm going to do is get a drop on the end of the brush and get it on there. Just so it sets in and I can have some sense of it before I move forward. And then at that point, we are probably ready to do another streaking grime project. Just for you, Dane. Just for you. Yeah, so I'm getting a drop of this stuff right on the end here. Just going to push it around a little bit. Get his eye up to a good screaming yellow. There's a lot on there. It's just like bulging off the thing. I'm gonna have to put this guy down carefully. Super gentle. Okay, he's gonna have to sit and wait for quite some time because that's a, I mean, you can see how bright that is. That is a big old glob stuck on there. But he's got time. Time to breathe in the back room. All right, so this guy is our victim, and his cloak is dry enough. He still doesn't have a backpack thing on it. I'm still debating. I might just snip that thing and not give him any backpack whatsoever. In which case, obviously, I have to fill that in with some green stuff, but I'll worry about that absolute last. I didn't do any shading on the teeth or these things. He's just got flat metal on him and a bunch of that AK slimy grime dark. But basically, it's just his metallics are done. He's got his base. And so if I dark streaking grime him, he should look wicked dark. Give it a good shake. Alrighty. This guy's getting covered. Double covered and smothered. Look at that stuff. It's just dark, dark soup. This is probably too small a brush for the dark business I'm doing. Grab a bigger one. Not a green brush, but already beaten to death on its last steps. Yeah, it's grime time. Oh yeah, and this is dark streaking grime. Oh man, this is good. This is good stuff. I'm not going to say this is just for you, Dane, but man, the streaking grime was like, was one thing. This is like another experience entirely. And it's got green to it. This may be like, this post slimy grime dark. It's like a match made in heaven. And honestly, I'm not sure how well this stuff is going to ungrime on this model because the primer coat's pretty thick on it. This is a big commitment right now. Oh my god, it's so grungy. Spare me this mockery of justice. You knew where you were going, buddy. This is always going to be a one-way ride. Oh yeah, I mean, he's not lacking for green, is he? Look at that. He looks like Swamp Thing. Oh, so good. So good. You get all over this stuff. Green this guy up. I will set a little clock after this to make sure I give this 15 minutes to set in. But yeah, this is, ooh. Yeah, I am going to hit these bones. Let's just do it. And look at that, just like that. We're all done. It's a perfect model. Death Guard at its finest. Lay this stuff on heavy, get it all in those brushes' teeth with it. Oh man. Yeah. There we go. Don't miss any spots. Top of this helmet. Look at that. Easy peasy. One coat. One coat and you're all done. It's a perfect model. I also probably shouldn't have the lights be green behind me while I'm painting. It absolutely affects your perception of color, but whatever. That's showbiz, I guess. There we go. A perfectly painted model. I'll just show it off. I just put it in my little spinny thing, take a video, cut the stream, be like, all done. This is how you get 30 Plague Marines done in one afternoon. Look at that guy. It's like he never saw color before in his life. I will set a little timer, set that guy down. That brush was so jammed up at the end that it was just flicking grime all over me. Not that I'm complaining. Not that I'm complaining at all. Alrighty, little timer here. Yeah, live on your YouTube channel. Alright, 15 minutes. Let that thing cook. Take a brief moment to admire my work. That guy's great. He's just, that guy fell in the swamp. Needed a towel. All right, so what I can do now is catch up on a little bit of metallic work back here. Sort of break up this backpack. It doesn't look as consistently the same color. We're going bronze. Yeah, look at how it's absolutely, let's see if it goes out of focus. You know, jacked up that brush is. I need to like label this thing my streaking grime brush. That thing is just mauled. I'm gonna leave it on this side. I'll mark it in some way. That thing has seen combat duty. All right, there's a good pile of this mud. There's my wounds, my streaking grime wounds. Okay, that's hot, but not so hot. I can finally put the lid back on it. All right, so this guy will get some warp lock bronze to break up things on his shoulders, and then I will rise or rust both these guys. And while the rise or rust is out, I will mark that brush for all of my future endeavors with streaking grime. Alrighty, it's good every once in a while to just pause for a second and look at stuff. Recenter yourself. There we go. And then move forward. Thin this out because, man, warp lock bronze is thick. Not sure how I feel about this brush. It may not last. We'll see. We'll see how it holds up. I'm gonna hit this whole back piece here. Yeah, you're done, brush. This guy is kaput. I'm actually gonna trash this guy. I know it sounds terrible, but they can't all stay. You gotta part with them every once in a while. I've put a lot of these brushes through a lot of pain. The small ones, like, are small for a reason. You gotta get in there and do the tiny bits. You need a brush that can handle it. And optimally an artist that can handle it too, but one of those things is replaceable. The other one isn't. All right. Oh yeah, that's some good handshaking. Stretch. Oh, I want to angle this thing. There we go. gotta listen to your body when it starts freaking out. Change your position, take a rest. I'm not taking a rest. Gotta listen to what it's telling you. There we go. That feels a lot better in my hand. Dot there, little dot there. I'll get these guys. Yeah, I was a little precarious there for a moment. You give your dad a visit? That's nice. That's nice. Yeah, after the old convo about watching stuff with your dad, it's cool to hear that you got to pay him a visit. It's important to do. Important to remember, folks. And a lot of times when life starts to get a little bit wild, crazy, I find that paying my past relatives a little visit sometimes just, I mean, obviously it's hard, but it can sort of recenter you a little bit, reset the speed clock a little. Just be contemplative for a while, not think as much about what's next, what's next, what's next. Just reminds you to think about what you got, place value in good things. I'm glad you got to pay him a visit. All right, so this is starting to get broken up. I mean, you can already see, and with a layer of wash, obviously it'll get more contrast to it. But what I think I'm going to do is those metal tubes on the side, any of those things that are like those long flexi tubes I tend to do in lead belcher. So I'll do that, and then this thing won't. I'm going to hit this whole. Nah, I won't hit that whole thing. And then when you look at it, it's just not as monolithic, one color mess. Still messy, but not monotonously messy. Pardon my alliteration. There we go. Just getting around there. Give this guy a spin. All right. So I'll get the lead belcher out, and then after that, we'll hit the Rise of Rust. Where did I put the lead belcher? I found the lead belcher. You can see it's shiny over here. This guy's eyes are still obviously very much drying, but man, those scream. So those will get a wash. But they still have a little bit of texture to them. I may hit them with a red wash, like a straight primary red wash. That might be cool. That might work. But they're still in timeout. They still got a lot to think about. Alright, so this would be for these hoses. Then I'll feel pretty good about the backside of this dude. As silly as that statement just sounded. Once again, lead belcher, super thick. Thin it down so the paint actually moves a little bit. And if you over thin it, you're probably fine. Always do a second coat. There we go. But especially on very textured stuff like that, I would always thin it a little bit for like the edge of a sword, just so it's smooth and you don't get brush strokes. But for something that's literally just all little bumps, a little bit of thinness there just makes the paint settle in a little bit, and you wait for it to soak in. If you need to hit it again, you hit it again. But I don't need it to be super shiny, because I'm probably going to black wash over that. But I need it to have enough shine so that black wash does something to it. I'm guessing on this model, normally this thing would have had a tentacle that went around and matched that. It doesn't, because I sort of jammed this guy together. So I'm actually going to go over that with silver in the hope that it looks like a piece of the sword getting through it. Because there's no thing to match it. I'll just hit this with a little silver too up here. Or lead belcher. It's not really silver. I agree with you. I don't prefer them, the bug-faced guys. It's a weird sort of like, it's not a departure from lore because there's absolutely bug-faced dudes. Um, but I do like them as sort of a contrast to the rest of them so that it feels more chaotic. But I definitely don't prefer them as much as the nightly guys, but I throw a couple of them in there just to get a different look. I think the only other place I actually have anything that's even referent like that is just this guy's pauldron. Um, and I like that just because I was going to match the green of his visor with something shiny over here. Um, but I did a bug-faced dude just to not be the thing that I like more, if that makes any sense. Like just to have someone walking around. Not that I disliked particularly, but I like the uniqueness of the Plague Marines, and that's like an opportunity for like in one fell swoop to get a guy that like looks very different. I also knew that like this weapon is not. I mean, it's okay, but it's not that great. And I was like, all right, but I got to use it because I don't have that many different melee weapons on the sprue, and I'm trying to do it where like one hand weapons are one type thing and two hand weapons are the other type thing. And now I'm starting to count down how many of each that I need. That I was like, all right, I'm going to give him this head so that it. So I've given him something that looks different. So he's his own person, but yeah, the bug head thing only has only popped up a little bit in all the books that I've read. I think it comes up. It's Flight of the Eisenstein. It's Garrow's ship when he's like heading back to Terra. He's got this guy that's massively injured and they're barely keeping him alive. He got like super plagued and they're just hitting him with all these like antibiotics and the guy's just freaking out. And because he's in the Astartes, he's just dying super slowly and he finally succumbs. He was voicing his head while he's lying in this bed for like, I think he was lying in bed for like a couple months, just like in quarantine. They were just running through servitors. They were just like run servitors till they died and they just incinerate them. And he finally hears this voice in his head and he like gives in to Nurgle. And I think when he comes out, he's got like a bug head. And he's sort of like a mini boss in that story, if I'm remembering it correct. And I think I only heard like one other story about maybe some attack in one of the Plague Wars books where like they're just talking about one Plague Marine that had a bug head. It doesn't come up that often. It's a little weird, a little squirrely. But I'm still very much experimenting, and I didn't think that I would like it. I'm not sure that I do like it, but I'm not going to behead him. It's worth the effort. All right, I will check my timer real quick. 2 minutes and 32 seconds before I start removing some of this streaking grime. I don't even know why I always shake this. It's a ritual habit. Get this Rise of Rust going. I really do like, in some cases, the straight up Citadel dry brush because it's a largely flat brush. Yeah, Garrow does. So the way that goes down is Garrow's getting singled out by Mortarion, essentially to die. In the way all the Traitor Legions at the very beginning, they basically purge the elements of their legion that they don't think are going to go along with the ride with Horus, along on the ride with Horus. And it's pretty dirty, and that's how like Istvan 3 gets lined up. That's who goes down to the surface, and it's really weird because like the Emperor's children are supposed to be off doing something way more important somewhere else, but like a ship full of guys shows up, and Eidolon is responsible for making sure that they're the ones, the boots on the ground, which is pretty sad. Um, And Garrow ends up there, and this dude Saul Tarvis, who's like old buddies. He's a Emperor's Children also. So yeah, that's probably about as much as that is. Yeah, I'll make it a little rustier. Make it. Yeah, let's make that thing Rusty McGee. Um, he figures out what's going to happen, and Saul Tarvitz hops on. I think it's like a Thunderhawk. It's a smaller ship, and he flies towards Garrow, and the two of them served elsewhere. Um, and so like they're old homies, and he gets in touch with Garrow, and he's like, "You gotta trust me. Like, there's a few refugees that are coming over with me. But we gotta get the heck out of here. Here's what's going down." And there's a super tense moment on the bridge of this Death Guard ship. There we go, mad rust. Um, and some of the dudes on Garrow's ship are like in on it, and they're like trying to assassinate him. They regain control of the ship. They hear from Saul, and then that's when they decide like, all right, we're bugging out. We're getting the heck out of here. And they barely get out, and they barely get out with Typhus in Terminus Est on their heels. But because they're a smaller ship than Terminus Est, they have to like pull some crazy maneuver where they can get like out of the firing solution, and they miracle warp jump, like not miracle, but very risky jump. Astropaths die, freaking out about it. They end up in the warp. They end up besieged, like basically a bunch of the warp gets in the ship, and a bunch of Garrow's guys and the guys he had to kill that tried to like assassinate him, which were Emperor's Children guys. Um, they go like full Nurgle in the warp, and so they have to fight through all those guys, and that's part of the reason his buddy gets like super sick, is he fought them. Look at that. Look at how rusty that thing is. How about I make you dinner with that cleaver? So yeah, that's sort of the full loop of it. Is his buddy gets injured in that fight, and then like spends months while they're sort of adrift trying to find their way home, just being mad sick and in quarantine. But Garrow holds it together, and he has a lot of like crisis of conscience. I mean, he's stuck right at the very end, like finding out that Mortarian's betraying him, finding out that Horus is like a pile of garbage, and he bounces. He says, "Peace out. I am done with this operation." All right, folks. Moment of truth. Getting the spirits out. I'll stash this guy aside because I'm not going to dry brush for a bit. I'm going strictly, I think strictly Q-tips on this. My hand's going to get dirty. Scooch that back a little bit. We'll start removing some of this glop. I should ask my wife if she's got any of those foamy, little squishy foamy things that you use on makeup. I think those are going to be better than Q-tips because they're not as fibrous. Oh, the magic's starting to come out. Look at that. Maybe I'll just use a towel. I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a shot. I'll give anything a shot. You know I'll give it a shot. This is a glasses towel, which I have tons of because I bought all sorts of weird lenses, and a lot of times you get one of these little towels with gosh knows whatever. Is it a better thing to put this in? Who knows? Whoop. Put it in the cap. You get these towels with all sorts of equipment that have any sort of lens on them whatsoever. Oh, buddy, you are grim and dark, and you are still pretty wet, but that's, yeah, look at that red coming through. Whoa, this towel's nice. Look at that. That is grim and dark. Definitely the future. So yeah, Garrow gets away. He doesn't actually, it's interesting, he doesn't actually make it to the Emperor. They stop him at the moon. And they're like, you can't see the Emperor. But then, and it obviously gets him pretty pissed. But then Malkador, the Sigilite, shows up on the moon. He's like, we can't let you see the Emperor directly right now. And they sort of imply that it's just like, It's like the first time when like the Emperor's too busy to do anything, and it's because he's doing all his Emperor business with trying to get warp travel going without the warp. His grand plan. But Malkador shows up on the moon. He's like, "We got a new job for you. For someone who's in tune with this warpish business, we need to hunt some things down. Figure maybe you're a good guy to do it." And he sort of gets knighted in that mission. Fun fact: I have a faction of loyal sons of Horus. Adius Fun 3. Two ships sacrifice themselves to help the other three ships plus Garrow to escape. Yeah. It's a honestly reading about that's really cool. Um very cool. Like reading about that, it's super interesting like how it goes down and it's a very like human process. Things don't go well on either side, on any side. This is good. I don't mind that I used it, but there are some spots I got to get into that it just won't make it to. This guy is going to remain quite grim and quite dark. I think I should have painted him a little lighter underneath. Though his teeth, like his teeth, they pop nicely. All the stuff on these horns coming out of him look really cool. It is a pain. You gotta like floss to get in there though. I don't want to hurt him. Certainly don't want to hurt him. Maybe I'm just being impatient. I feel like I'm being a little impatient. But yeah, like what's interesting about Istvan 3 is that it's supposed to be purging the people that Primarchs thought wouldn't come over with Horus's plan. And they get totally betrayed in the process, obviously. You know, the place gets virus bombed, which is like to everyone involved, even people on Horus's side, they're like, that seems a little excessive. Obviously, Typhus doesn't care. He's like, well, that's awesome. That's dope. Do it. Um, but when people see it going down, it's like such a statement. It's not like, ooh, I let some people die. It's like, I am very much getting rid of people in the worst way possible. You know what's interesting? I think I'm probably going down to the primer at this point. Like I'm definitely not getting in too rough on this red, but this was blood for the blood god. So this was like thick, super shine, super shine of Palooza. But I think elsewhere I'm actually getting down to the primer a bit, which is awkward. I guess that makes sense given the fact that the coat underneath was a pretty solid green. That like, how do you even tell? How do you even tell? Interesting. Nice. That is awesome. I dig that a lot, Dane. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm down to the primer on this guy. I could probably do this as a first step and then just paint the details over it now that I think about it. Like if I had known how green this stuff was, and I'll probably do this with the subsequent couple of champions I gotta do, but I could literally prime this guy with black with a little spritz of white on top, do this step first, maybe do something like the cloak first with it. But you don't have to do much else with it. Like do the suit. Maybe I did. I think I did this right. I think I did it right. Because I would have to do this white first. That would be a necessity. Do the white first. Get the cloak first. Then everything else is just going to be detail work later. A little more soupy on here. Get under here. Oh yeah, this guy's so grim, so dark. But he's neat. Like it's really tough to tell with this in this light. But like a lot of little bits are shining through, and a lot of them aren't. A all the recesses, like all between his fingers, is just grime. I mean, as a base, this would be super quick. I mean, a lot of these spots, like I'm gonna obviously hit the glow on the weapon. I'm gonna do a little bit of line work here, but I'm guessing the rest I'll get a little bit of blood on the teeth. There's a couple little silver pieces that probably I won't be able to get enough stuff off of. But after that, maybe just a little dry brushing that's something a lighter green, just in a little spot to get a shine. That's pretty interesting. Like I feel like this cloak, if I hit it, yeah, I can pull this up a little bit more. I was being a little ginger at first because the paint underneath. But yeah, look at that. It's getting red. I mean, once that gets a wash, then I can do some line highlights on the parts of the cloak that are raised a little bit. And those can just get Mephiston red because it's a couple shades lighter. Yeah, it's gotta be good. He's obviously got a lot of time to wait and dry. I don't think I'm going to touch him again today. I'll just scooch out the cap of this that I used to hold my neutral spirits. Ooh, it's heady in here. Odorless, you say? I don't think so. Always keep your little bottle of water close by, because man, water's going to do wonders to clean mineral spirits off my hands. I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'm actually going to just properly wash my hands. Let this room vent a little bit. I'll be right back. Look at how professional I am. See you in a second. Ah, much better. I also checked my ribs that are outside on the smoker. You gotta do that. Gotta do it. Alrighty. I think we are ready to move on to a little bit more wash work. A couple little spots I want to hit with Agrax. I modeled their captain if you want to see, because they survived till 40k and some keep their Sons of Horus colors. Yeah, definitely share a pic. Absolutely do. Always do. Alright. Pics. That sort of dried overnight. I don't even know why I tried that. Let's do this again. And I will grab some. I don't need some Lamian medium. I'm just going to go straight. Main things I want to hit is making sure that this back piece gets enough contrast. It'll be dark, but between the bronze and the lead belcher I added and how many little recesses it's got, I want to make sure that it has enough darkness in it with the little shadowy parts get shadowy. So this will get a pretty healthy helping of Agrax all over it. But yeah, those guys sound cool. I dig it. Scooch some in there. Looking back on this, I totally whiffed on the grenade. So we'll just hit him with a heavy amount of Agrax in there to start. And I'll hit him with a little bit of contrast. Sometime after this dries, this is definitely the spot where you start finding the little bits that you totally whiffed on. And then what I like to do sometimes with skulls is that as much as I hit them with Seraphim Sepia on some of the details on the front, I just tap a little bit of Agrax. I'll sometimes use black in this same way, but I just tap around the eyes, the nose, the teeth, and the sort of eyebrows, just so that those super tiny details stick out a little bit more. Like the Seraphim is good to give that rotten bone look. Getting the facial features to really pop out. Like one of these days, I'm absolutely going over all my poxwalkers exactly like this on their faces. Because I was so new to it. Also hit the fingers a little bit. Nice, cool. I will check those out in just a second. Well, like poxwalkers have super tiny faces, and if you don't give it a little help with a pretty dark wash, yeah, see the fingers? When that dries, it won't really get much in the way of the sepia, but it'll just have just a little bit more darkness between the fingers makes them stand out. And then sometimes I hit a couple little dots just around some of these bolts. Them stick out a little more. Some of the higher up bolts, there aren't really many on this one. And some of the higher up bolts, you sort of dab it in there and just give it a little flick so it looks like there's a little bit of just smearing going on. I'll hit some of these little divots. I don't generally hit these creases too much. I mean, obviously I just did because I was talking about it, but I find that it's a little bit better to hit it with a second shot of Seraphim Sepia on those. Little dots. I'll hit the little back of that guy's head. Little spot in there. Bolt, and it really does need almost none to get the job done. And if you dab it lightly enough, I'll hit these things. I don't even know what those are. Those little accordion stretchy bits on the back. But it just starts to make some of the super tiny details stand out a little bit more than Seraphim Sepia can. I'll hit the bottom of that boot because everyone's going to be looking underneath my model at that. Yeah, just making sure a little bit Now I'm just moving it around. It's looking pretty good. And a couple more bolts in here that I can hit. But it's literally you just touching it and letting the liquid move off the end of the brush. And just scooch in a little bit. I'll do the same on this dude. Just a dot here and there. And this is something when I got started that I would never consider doing. I didn't even really know how to use washes when I started. I knew they were helpful, but like I just used them in weird ways. Which there's nothing wrong with using them in weird ways, but you also want to kind of use them what they're for as well. There's nothing wrong with doing things by the rules. I don't feel limited by the rules. Let's get this chain mesh a little bit. I do know something else I can do these guys. They need a cloth wash. I will check out that picture first. Show and tell, show and tell. I got all this show and tell. Oh, that guy looks sweet. Hang him up on the screen. Yeah. That's awesome. Very cool. Now that he's up on the screen in front of me, I stick my head in the shot. Awesome. I dig it. All right, what did I say I was going to do? Yeah, red wash. Red wash, red wash. That's going to be Carolbird Crimson for the win. And that will deepen up this cloth. Yeah. That stuff's so good. Get into all those little places. It should be a little bit more shadowed. Keep it from looking too bright. I'm fine with a little bit being not drippy, but heavy. Does this guy have cloth? Yes, he does. He's got plenty of cloth. Just makes it look more clothy and less bright. Don't want too much bright. And it gives it a little bit of a sheen too. Oh yeah, that guy's shaping up. I'm gonna use a different red wash on his eyeballs. I think I'm gonna use a straight up red wash, and we'll see. Don't know how that's gonna look. Don't know how that's gonna look. But it'll probably take him back to a little bit of an orange. I think I have some Vallejo that is straight up red. Red wash. Last time I used this stuff, I was putting glitter on typhus. Brazen display of, I don't know what it was a brazen display of, but it was a brazen display of something. Put one little drop of that on the old palette. I barely need any. Move this fume bottle out the way. Give this thing a wash. The brush that is. And then I'm just going to put a drop of this red on each eye. Let it get into those seams. Man, this does not look like I thought it was going to look, but it does look pretty cool. It's all just relying on surface tension right now. All of this look is just surface tension. You can see it's sort of like ignoring gravity. I mean, that's pretty neat. Hopefully it dries that way. Let me try a little bit more on there. Watch it just drip all over the place. Blah. Get a little bit stronger gradient going. There you go. Creepy Bug Marine. You got it. I mean, I'm pretty pleased with that. It's definitely not that huge flat yellow. It's like this bloodshot, shiny, cool looking thing. I need to let him sit nice and flat for a few moments so that starts to stick and dry in there. But his eyes look cool. Definitely would have looked cool with green. Probably would have looked good with blue. But as a method with Bad Moon Yellow and the Viejo just straight up like primary color wash, I'm actually very pleased with that. Toot my own horn. A really cool gradient on it. I have no experience with using contrasting washes or like darker washes over lighter stuff. Like everything I do is Death Guardy. All right, I'll sit him there. His tongue could get Magos purples. That's pretty strong stuff. I'll do a couple clicks over on this other screen just to make sure. I do have some paints coming in the mail, so there could be stuff on my doorstep right now, and I wouldn't even know it. Oh yeah, the orc that I ordered that shows up tomorrow is Goff Rocker. Delivered today. I do have paints on my doorstep. Let me go get them. This stuff needs to dry a little bit too. It'll just take 1 second. Alrighty, fun time. I'm not going to put this package on screen so that everybody can mail me weird stuff, but I will pop the outside open and then we'll see what we got. I think this is mostly stuff to round out my green situation and then to have some things that I think I might try for Mortarion. And it may work for everyone else. Mail day, mail day. I got so much mail day. Alrighty, get all these out of this box. See what we got, and then maybe make use of something here. Toss this box over here. There we go. Alright, so what do we got? Celestra Gray. I needed something that was a very consistent gray base, which I didn't really have before. That's cool. Shade, Poxwalker. How could I not own this already? I actually did a little search for like paint colors that I absolutely should own. Like Nurgle's Rot, absolutely. Once again, Nurgling Green. And this is a really good color. And it's a dry brush. So it's that thick, thick stuff. Excited for that. And it's super light. I was struggling with doing dry brushing on like armor and things for my Death Guard because like everything seems to veer off into like happy colors of what I was using. Ooh, Screamer Pink. Need that. Set that guy aside here. Mechanicus Standard Gray. Yep, that and Celestra. Get my gray spectrum going. Galvorback Red, which isn't quite like Screamer Pink, but we'll go with it. Some of these are going to go on Mortarian's wings, I think. Set that aside. Reichland Fleshshade, because you can never have enough Fleshshade. Iron Rack Skin. Good stuff. Tyrant Skull. Sounds like a cool name. Another light dry brush color that I'm figuring will probably work with the lighter part of my color scheme. Like you can see if I was dry brushing over that, it would bring some stuff up. And then Nurgling Green could be used to bring up some edges and stuff on the green parts. SMRT Smart. Drakenhof Nightshade. Looks good when I watch someone in a video use it. So, that's all very cool stuff. I should figure out what I'm going to do on this guy's tongue. And what I think I'm going to try right out the gate, because it's still sitting here on my wet palette, I'm going to hit him with the same red. Yeah, that looks good. Same red wash that I used on his eyes. It's funny with how many, Citadel colors are all these crazy names. And then you get a Viejo wash and it's like red. That's all I am, red. As if you forget that normal middle of the road primary colors are a thing. Yeah. That tongue looks good. I'm gonna hit him with a little bit more. A little heavy-handed here. Alright, does he have any other weird tentacular stuff? Let me hit that little loop a little bit. I'll get that more later. This guy, I think, only had... Oh, he's got a tongue, too. Yeah, we'll hit it with these. This is looking good. Oh, yeah, that's great. That's just great. Red doing red things. Tentacle up here, too. Dabbing it in there. Get underneath. Make sure it's getting in those seams everywhere. Get a splash more on the tongue. That's looking solid. Looking solid. Things are coming right along. I will once again pull out a danger color. Blood for the blood god. We get a little bit on those teeth. Those teeth be hungry. I'm doing it now because those teeth may get a second round of wash, and I'd want that wash to go over the bloody teeth. And this stuff is like Nurgle's Rot. It's very translucent. You never get like a full coat of it, but it does look like blood. That definitely looks like blood. So now these teeth have a little bit more bite to them. Chomp chomp. A little whoop. I'll just add a little bit on the tongue. It'll get thinned out by that wash I put on there, but it'll help carry over some of that color from the teeth. And it makes good sense. All right, so if I look at these guys, they're in pretty good shape. They're rusted up. Some of them may need a little bit of washing. A little bit of Nurgle's Rot here and there could be good. But they're good and differentiated. Yeah, this guy's backpack is going to get Agrax Earthshade. That's how we do. Agrax back in business. And I'm going to give it some on the helm. And then I think I'll feel pretty good about those spots. He may have a couple little cracks and creases that I'll add some more into. That's my Bustord one. Yeah. That backpack needs a wash. Actually, the whole thing back here needs a wash. That's right. I never got to this part. A pretty hefty wash. The blade, the scabbard. This will darken up the shine up here, and it'll pop out some more details. There are porch pirates in the States. So interestingly enough, where I'm sitting right now, I could see right out my front window. And my doorbell does have a camera on it. Thing is, my phone, it's not in my pocket right now because I took it out. I set it aside while I'm streaming. So I'm guessing if I looked over here, yep, a little thing there. There are porch pirates in the United States, but my neighborhood's been pretty aight. I've never had a problem here. I only have a camera on my front porch because I have little kids, and I was like, well, you know what? I guess I'll just beef up security in some way, shape, or form. Um, but I'm not in a rich neighborhood, but I'm in one of those like suburban neighborhoods where everyone keeps an eye out for each other. I'm not saying everybody likes each other, but we do a good job looking out. Yeah, these shoulders need some wash too. Just to bring up all these cracks that are in here, all that good stuff. Make those edges that go up to the metal a little bit more pronounced. But normally, like if I'm sitting at my desk, like working or just hanging out playing video games, like my leg buzzes, I push a button, and I can see what's out my front door. Which is kind of neat. It wasn't too expensive. Interesting how that. Some people like it, some people don't. I think my wife's tired of it, but that's life. That's compromise. There's plenty of stuff I compromise on too. All right, just get wood on this thing. Yeah, that last sort of bit of washing does bring a lot of joy. I may still dry brush some little bits of this thing here and there. But yeah, getting these pauldrons in the helmet. Now that all that red is dry in there, this gets that crease darkened up. Good, good, good. Yeah, I've lived in apartments where like you just go pick your mail up, it's all just dropped off, and that is nice and secure. I have lived in places where there absolutely the threat of porch pirates was a big deal. But my house is like very, very out in the open, so it's also not a really tempting place to engage in such shenanigans. This guy does have a lot of bolts, so I'm gonna hit a lot of them. I'm gonna get all around this bug. It's an awesome breastplate the guy's got with a huge fly on it. That's so cool. I guess what I'm saying is my house is just like very visible to like everyone on the street. There's like a road that leads straight up to it, and then it loops around, and my house is like right there. Try to let you guys see what I'm doing. Yoink. Just a stroke around the bottom of that, because that'll bring some line work up. And around these skulls. I don't want to hit them because they're already nicely shaded with what I got there before. But getting that edge, that'll make that sing. Get the fingers a little bit, as I was saying before on the other model. Yeah, get some of these bolts. Boop, 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 boop. I mean, this guy is largely in good shape. Oh, now I have him up on the screen. He does have a tentacle around there. Ugh, I always keep forgetting stuff. All right, well, no time like the present. I'm not going to use Screamer Pink. I will use Gal Vorback Red on this tentacle, because new stuff is fun. Yeah, oh, that's a cool color. Look at that. Nice muted down. It's like if fuchsia was not bright. like that as a tentacle color. That is rich. Very rich color. Oh, this is like one of my new favorite colors. It's actually a color instead of everything that's just green. Green dark. That's nice. That is really nice. Like that's nice as a base for tentacly stuff. Oh, hit your tongue a little bloop 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 bloop. Just dab some on there. A couple little flicks on here. It's nice as a base color for tentacle stuff, but as like a highlight for like flesh or a bunch of this red cloak stuff, like while I'm here, let's see how this flies. Yeah, it's a little too dark to edge with on this thing. If I added a little white to it and a little white in that mix, that would make a nice highlight color. It's like reddish, pinkish, but subdued. Neat. Very neat. And that tentacle looks pretty solid. Like you do things you never thought 6 months ago you're ever going to say out loud. That tentacle looks pretty solid. That's high on the list. High on the list. So as I keep creeping around this model and finding little bits that need to be fixed, I think I'm back in Warplock Bronze territory. That's Agrax. Where did I put my bronze? I have so many paints on this table now that I've unpacked like 8 or 10 of them. But yeah, those colors are going to be pretty much pick those up for Mortarian business. Figured I got the model, might as well branch out my colors a bit. I still don't know the exact scheme I'm going to do with him. Still not 100% sure about that. But I know his wings at least will be light, and we'll need some color to make them pop. And on the box, he's like blue, gradient to white, gradient back to sort of red, albeit very, very gingerly done. I'm not sure I'm going to go with both those colors. I do think his wings need to be light, at least for my model. I've seen some really good models where like, man, Mortarian is like dark but has like neon highlights on it. That stuff's wild, but I don't think I would do a very good job with it. So, and it just wouldn't be me. Which is pretty important that I keep it me-ish. And I really like that guy's eyes. That was not a lot of work to get that gradient out of there. Bloodshot bug eyes. Toot my own horn as much as I want. It's just a contrast paint. Well, no, it was a base, then a contrast, and then some Viejo red wash, and it just went where it went. Neat. Very cool. So this guy might be done. A couple little maggoty things going on there, but I do my maggots light anyway. I will wash this brush a little bit and lighten up these maggots a little bit. Oh, you know what? I will just pull. No, that's Death Forest. We have Nurgles Rot out here? We don't. All right. I will just hit a couple spots with, not Tyrant Skull, with Iron Rack Skin. Just bring a couple lines up. I think a lot of the issues with just crime in general are just very localized. Like I've lived in all kinds of different neighborhoods over the course of my life, and the profile of them in terms of not only are they safe or not, but how and like in what way are they safe or not, it's just been totally different. And like in terms of my own personal safety, one of the safest times of my entire life was in one of the most quote unquote unsafe neighborhoods that I ever lived in. But like I lived there long enough where I knew everybody and they knew me, so I was kind of like part of the neighborhood, not someone from the outside. I wasn't some, weird white dude who went down the wrong street. I was just a weird white dude that lived on the street. So like nobody bothered with me. Like people were like super nice. But I know that if I was not from there and I was just like hanging, I'd probably be in some amount of trouble. So it's definitely it's weird. Like it's not a easy thing to characterize. So I'm just hitting some of these skulls on some of the top parts. A little bit of whatever the heck this is called, iron rack skin. So it just gives a little bit of an illusion of light. And when I say a little bit, I'm doing it like pretty sure not how you're supposed to do it. So it's much more illusion than tactical. But I don't know. I like it. It's practice. Yeah. Yeah. And this paint should be good for this cloth that goes around here that I never painted. It's still the color of my primer. You never know with these things. There can't be purity seals. Man, chaos folks don't really do those at the moment. I'm not sure what this is. I feel like a money-making opportunity for selling what the opposite of a purity seal is. The opposite of an oath. And yes, that'll obviously need a wash later. Right now it just looks super flat, but I'm in that phase where you just spin stuff around. Oh yeah, I can hit these skulls a little bit. It'll just a little bit to give him a shine. Get this guy's nose. Yeah, a little bit of highlight there. That's good. Tip some of these horns. Hit that long edge. Yeah, you coming together, buddy. A little bit more on here. Yeah. Yeah. Get this elbow a little bit. But I think at this point I am done with this dude, with the exception of a couple little washes on him. Just a couple little spots like that cloth I just did. The skulls look neat. Maybe I should hit that tentacle with a little bit of wash, but for the most part, he's a plague marine. He looks alright. This guy, I'll just grab some of this. Once again, it is iron rack skin. Thin it out a little and just see if there's a couple little spots I want to highlight. Like this maggot should come up a little bit. A little maggoty, have them stand out a little. At the ends of these amazingly branchy looking things. Actually get a little bit along this edge. A little more. Just a little more. There we go. Barely noticeable, just like we like it. A little couple of edges of armor, get on the thumbs, little tops of the fingers. Not a whole heck of a lot. Top of this elbow, just a little dab here and there. But I think for the most part, like, this guy's in pretty good shape too. Pretty good shape. Alright. I think there will probably be one more episode before I crack out Mortarion, and that will be all the stuff that Captain Champion needs now that he's just a total sloppy mess. And that'll be cleaning up the teeth, making them bloody, adding a bunch of highlights all over the place, tongues, horns, you name it, weapon stuff, eye hole things, grenades. I'll do some dry brush and highlights on his cloak. I like how his cloak looks. I think I'm going to leave him like this. I think I'm just going to snip that butt off. He looks good without a backpack. But I think that'll be the last episode before I crack Mortarion open. Question. Why do your mailman leave your parcels on the doorstep? Why not knock on your door, post a letter through? Some small towns actually do that. Um, but I don't know what it is. I think it's part of it is cultural, where like the mail service, as we completely divert away from 40K into U.S. history, which is fine by me. The U.S. Postal Service is like a big sort of point of pride thing in um, early when this country was built. After we cast off the shackles of the British Empire, spilled that tea in the Boston Harbor, it was a massive frontier, and all the way into like 1800s, through almost to the 1900s, like the U.S. Post was a massive sort of point of pride infrastructural thing. And it's kind of crazy to think about that, like in the 1800s, if I lived in Rhode Island, as I do, I could like write on a piece of paper, fold it up a certain way, put a stamp on it, and have extreme confidence that it would find a person in San Francisco. And the amount of steps it took to do that. It might go on trains from all sorts of different train company tracks, and someone might be carrying it on a horse between two towns. But the mail did get through. And the concept of like leaving it directly on someone's doorstep, I think, is in part that Americans also order so much stuff through the mail at this point that I don't think infrastructurally a post office can really afford to hang on to packages. Um, I order all kinds of stuff through Amazon just all the time. And it is wasteful, and I feel somewhat bad about that. But I've got solar panels, and I've worked in energy efficiency in previous incarnations of my life. But like, it's convenient. And I worked for UPS, so I've thrown cardboard boxes all over the place, put them in trucks. But I don't think your local post office, if you're in the United States, I don't think any based on scale could really hold all that much stuff that long. Like if I've got 5 days to pick it up, I don't think that post office can hold it anymore. I'm guessing that's a big part of it. They just got to keep it moving. Because like the post office in my town was probably built, that building was probably built in the 50s. There's probably 4 times as many human beings living in this town, and they order 10 times as much stuff in cardboard boxes. I don't think they'd have any place to put it. And I think, to an extent, myself included, Americans are very much like, just put it on my doorstep. Like, bring it all the way to my house. I'm not saying that that's cool, but, and I'm not saying it'd be a terrible inconvenience, but the idea of having to pick up all my boxes from the post office, I could do it. I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. But I've gotten very culturally used to like, oh my God, there's a thing at my door, just like happened today. Like, oh, the stuff's right here. It's like free Santa Claus, except that I obviously bought the stuff. But it's a nice treat. But there are issues with it. But yeah, that's my long-winded rationale. And it used to be that that postal carriers would knock on your door and stuff like that, but a lot of mailboxes are actually down by the street, and I think a lot of people don't want to be knocked on. It's like not common, at least in New England, all that much to have the post person knock on your door anymore. I mean, I know my mailman, but that's because I work at home and I see him all the time, and I'm friendly. But I think they just push it through now. Royal Mail here in the UK used to get choked up in London. The roads overcrowded. Yeah, so they had a mail rail system in place to move it from post office to post office. Yeah, it's crazy when you think about industrial revolution till now, and human health standards, and like how much populations have absolutely blown up. Um, and still, like major cities, at least in the West, are like the same major cities that they were a long time ago. And I know the United States isn't that old, but like, Boston was one of the first cities that started to blow up in New England, and it's still one of the biggest cities up here. Like New York, same thing. And a lot of them have a lot of old character that goes back hundreds of years, and it's hard to get that infrastructure to click. Like, I'm pretty sure there's areas of the subway in New York that like, if they turn them off for maintenance, they're not sure that they get turned back on. So they just kind of have to let them run. It's pretty wild. to bring it all home. It's not as wild as the, I'm not going to put my coffee in the shot, as the 40K universe, but it suffers from the same sort of infrastructural BS where, like, you know, the bureaucracy's still running, but it's not like everything runs cool. You know, you need black ships to find latent psychers and potentially dangerous people, so you can train them to be astropaths and navigators, so you can put more ships out into space and communicate across the known universe, so that you can have more black ships, so that you can get more astropaths and psychers. It's wild. The mail rail is still there as a museum. Isn't that funny? It's like how those things work. Like, yep, and now it's a museum. I will absolutely take some pictures of that. That's cool stuff. I love history. I love the grim dark future, but I do like history too. I am gonna bounce, so you can expect an episode at some point. I don't know when it's gonna be, where I finish off this bloke. I can safely say, next to my other Plague Marines, he will stand out in his darkness as a champion. But I'll finish this guy off, and this guy will be done in one episode, no problem. And then after that, it's going to be Mortarian time. So I'll prepare myself for that. Anyhow, I'm going to bounce and see if my ribs are done. But this was fun, and I've got two more Plague Marines in the can, so that's good. Hope everyone has a good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever the heck you are. Seems like everyone is in a different time zone. And I'll see you next time. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye.